Hello, hello, and here we go for the first interview of this podcast. I'm doing a little intro before the full authentic conversation with Valentina Leo because at the end of the recording, we actually noticed the level of vulnerability, the level of intimacy that the conversation was about. And so this is actually not a trigger warning, but a flirting with the edge warning or more like care to really take this episode with the vulnerability that it is of this conversation, but also that it's actually one's truth. It's not about the truth, but about sharing authentically what were the questions, but also mostly what is flirting with the edge. Please enjoy, and here we go. Hello and welcome to Flirting with the Edge. Today, for the first interview, I am so happy, so honored. I am delighted to have, I was going to say actually first Mrs. Love, but Mrs. Love, who is Valentina Leo. Welcome to Flirting.
AKA.
Yes, aka Mrs. Love. You're a friend, a sister, a colleague, a teacher, and I feel like so much more in the sense of like simply human beings relating. So welcome.
Thank you.
I am still going to present you a little bit, even though I do know you're not so much fan of it, but there might be still definitely listeners that don't know you yet. And so just some snapshots of why I invited you, or actually also presenting you, is like you actually have a school. You're the director of the Fascinating Wonderment School in South Africa. And I love that you're in South Africa. Well, right now I'm in Switzerland. I invited you because to me, you're a fucking freaking amazing, inspiring woman. And to me, you do embody womanness in the sense I can feel in you so many archetypes. The young girl, the virgin, I feel the mother, I feel the sage, the crone, I feel the priestess, the sorcerer, en français, in French we say sorcerer.
Sorceress. Sorceress.
Sorceress. So many of them. So before I even ask you any question, how are you? What is in your heart? Like, how do you feel?
I feel very honored. Hello. I feel very honored to be here. Hello, sweetheart. Good to see you. It's beautiful to be together. We shared so many intimate spaces we've been growing up together in the last 10 years, perhaps already. I don't know how long have we been knowing each other.
6. I think at least 6. At
6,
least.
7, yeah.
But it feels more. Yeah, definitely.
It feels more. It feels like, forever. And probably it is. One day when we die and we are on the other side, we're going to go, you, of course, it's you. I've known you forever. So I'm well. I'm feeling really good. I'm in a good space. Right now, it can all change in a moment. Life has been such a roller coaster. And but right now I'm feeling very present, very honored to be here with you, and touched by your praise, feeling seen.
Thank you, love. And I want to say that you played a great part in me creating this podcast. Because you're like, I told you the title, Flirting with the Edge, and you were like, yes. And then you could say, like, flirting with your edge, with your orgasmizer, Lila Stephanie, because I was your orgasmizer. But so as it's the first interview, I just want to name that the intention with this call is to have an open heart conversation into the unknown. And I want to jump straight into something that just is coming. So if you're ready.
I'm very ready.
I'm asking your womb and your heart, what has been one of the greatest teachings you've experienced in this life until now?
Mm. Well, this is a difficult question because I can't say there is just one thing. I think I think the greatest teaching is that life is a continuous learning.
Mm.
It's to become comfortable in not knowing and keep the desire of learning alive.
Mm.
Yeah, to be a student. I don't even know if it's a teaching or just blessings to recognize this.
Yeah,
Um,
thank
yeah,
you. A student of life.
student of life to keep on
Yeah.
learning. You know, I am a teacher in my school, and I always say I teach because I want to learn. And so I created a school. So um, it was a way to hold me to keep studying. You know, in virtue of my teaching, I have to stay active in my learning,
Yeah.
and and so the student is always the best place to be. I feel. Um, Not to think when we teach that we have arrived anywhere, because then the teacher is very stale. You know, when you say we're going to have a conversation into the unknown, I thought, well, every good conversation should be like this, into the unknown. Because if you're just talking about what we know already, what's the point of it? We know it already, right? So we talk, we have conversation to discover at all time something new, something that is landing in a different way. So this
Mm.
create inspiration. These are the most beautiful conversation to have.
Mm. I agree. And I actually remember we're in a coffee called the Black Cat in Malta. And I remember
Aha.
because in that moment I was asking you so many questions and I was like, fuck, you had so many lives in this life. And I'm happy that today I get to ask you even more questions and my heart. So the podcast is called Flirting with the Edge. So of course it will go into those realms, but I'm curious from my heart, what has been or what is edgy for your heart that maybe isn't for your mind or your sex, but currently or lately, what has been edgy for your heart?
Deep intimacy. Yeah, it's edgy for the heart to completely surrender and unravel. I think is the bravest thing to do. And sometimes I realize I'm not so brave as I believe to be. And I notice my own edges in touching deeper the places of deeper intimacy in my being. That's my edge.
Thank you, love. You're so marvelous, and I'm just so happy to see you here in front of the camera right now. May you
Um,
please present me because it's in your background. You have a splendid red sculpture. What is it?
can you see it? Do I have to go closer, or you can see from here?
Yeah, I can see most of it.
This is one of my latest sculpture. Um, it's called the Ever Giving Goddess Mother,
Mm.
and it's an open vessel. And she's a very feminine body, and I don't know if I can show you more or less. And she's
Yeah,
got a penis, and she's
yeah.
very erect. And I really like to explore with androgyny lately. You know, that places where it's not even, you know, that gender really dissolve.
Mm.
And for me, even this image of the deep feminine that gives, it's like a penis that offer the seeds of the heart.
Mm.
And in its own offering, when the penis offer his own seed for life, is it masculine or is it feminine?
Mm. Is it how, because I know you teach women mixed, but also men. Is it how you like you connect to the teachings to male, or how do you connect actually to when you teach to male bodies?
What do you mean? Like
Like
in
right now you
relation to the
spoke like,
sculpture?
yeah, like you spoke that like in a way, in like spiritual ways, like you're wondering if when the life giving, like through the fruits, is it feminine or masculine? And I just created the story in my mind, which was like, I know you also teach to men bodies. And I was curious, when you teach to men bodies, is it like through the same lens of like androgynous bodies? Or actually, is it like a complete lens of more like binary way of seeing the bodies? I'm
Yeah,
curious about what you
I teach
said.
philosophy. At the end of the day, I teach Kashmir Shaivaism, and the philosophy addresses the human being, the heart of being human. And then the way we express it in the world as men or women or children or adult or single or coupled, these are all details of the expression. So even when I teach men, I'm really interested in blending the philosophy, which is completely androgynous. It's
Mm,
got to do with the heart expressing in the world. So sexuality is the celebration of the opening heart. So is the heart opening masculine or feminine? It doesn't matter. It's beyond that. It just is the heart opening. And so for me, at this stage of my life and my teaching, I go a little bit beyond all the stereotype also of masculine teaching and feminine teaching. There's been a big wave in Neo Tantra of this separation of what are the quality of the masculine and the quality of the feminine. How do we express? And I feel that when we do this, yes, can be useful for a little bit just to get the mind going with understanding the way we operate in the world. But if we stay too stuck in these two lines, we're separating even more. We keep
mm,
dissecting the human experience. And so when we have some emotional response, are this masculine, are this feminine? You know, recently I was sitting with a Tantra teacher, and he asked me to look at his manual for his training in Tantrism, to have a look and give him some feedback. And I noticed the only things I circled when he spoke about Shiva and Shakti, and he was saying that when a person is um, too deep into the emotional expression, they have too much Shakti, it's too much Shakti.
mhm.
And then when someone is a bit aloof and unengaged, it's too much Shiva, it's too much into the
Yeah.
Shiva. And I was like, listen, I understand what you mean, but you have to be very careful how we verbalize this, because from the tantric perspective, this is really wrong. There cannot be too much Shiva. There is only Shiva. Shiva is the essence of reality. Everything is permeated by Shiva consciousness. So you cannot have too much Shiva or too much Shakti. Shakti is it's always in the measure that is necessary for you to move in the world, for to have a conversation, to celebrate, to fall in love. The motion of consciousness into the world is the Shakti. Cannot be too much Shakti or not enough Shiva. You must balance your Shiva and your Shakti, because what we are doing, we take in these universal forces, we make them so small, we make them into things that me, with my human
Mm,
ego, I use to my advantage. And so I'm putting myself at the center of the universe, when in the tantric lens, the center of the universe is Shiva, throbbing with the force of Shakti expressing into the world. So there cannot be too much of one, or it's not up to me to balance those forces. I should surrender to the force of reality and let them move me into the world with devotion towards that is way bigger than me.
Mm,
So this is where I come with the teaching. When we are looking at the details and we make the detail the ultimate, you know, because you're too distracted or you're overly focused or you're overly emotional, we make the details the essence, then it's problem, you know, we become very
mm,
self-absorbed and we're losing the element of humility and absolute devotion. So for me, it's always a question when I ask, you know, is the seed that offer life, is it masculine or feminine? Within the question, there is the answer, is neither or. It's the seed of reality expressing. And in our human form, the penis represented so well, but also the
mm,
breast and the milk, you know, we exude, we express milk and we feed the human of the planet. You know, this is an action. And so is it masculine? Because we know that linear action, it's in the realm of the masculine. When a mother puts a breast in the mouth of the baby, is a masculine action? Yeah, in some way there is intention, but when she relaxes and feed the baby with the nectar of her heart, is that feminine? So when we keep asking is to get to the point that is neither or. It just
mm,
is the force of love moving. And if we stay focused on the essence of this movement, the detail are decoration, which are lovely to have, but not the essence. So to come back to your question, I teach men in the same way I teach women because I teach humans. And sometimes it's just nice to have groups of men and groups of women because the energetics changes and
mhm.
they can recognize each other in each other's story and they have different experience of life.
Oh,
Um, but ultimately, the teachings are always the same. So for
mm,
me, this feminine body, this red bikini, of course, she has a penis. So we including also, you know, this masculine presence within the body of the feminine. They're never separated. Shiva Shakti are never two. It's always one generative force.
mm,
And but I like to use the symbols, you know,
mm,
breast and
mm.
penises and vagina. They can speak about philosophy so clearly.
Definitely.
It's called the erotic mysticism of Shaiva Tantra.
Mm, mm. Thank you so much, dear. Like, not only I'm being fed, like my sapiosexual being is being like, ugh, oh yes. But I really loved seeing and witnessing how your body becomes so alive with those teachings. Like you
Mm.
become aliveness while you speak with presence. And that's like a big ah.
It excites me clearly.
Yeah. Does like because a part of me is like, wow, it keeps exciting you over and over the years. How come?
Yeah. How
And
come?
since when? Because now it's been like years and many years you've been teaching it.
Yeah, 30 years, 20 years teaching, but 30 years
That's
really
like a long wedding, a
20,
long
20,
marriage.
25 years actually, to be
Uh,
precise, if I have to place a beginning for me in my relationship with Tantra.
Yeah, that's a big relationship. How has it evolved? How do you entertain? I don't want to go too much into that question because I know there is another question that is here, but still, like 25
You know,
years. It's
it
literally the
entertains
longest
me.
commitment.
It entertains me. I'm not entertaining it. It entertains me. It's always so revealing, you know. And I went in so many waves in 25 years. Of course, I was an academic. I was a dancer of classical Indian. dance, which is so linked with the essence of tantrism, and music and art. And I'm a sculptor, as you can see. Um, so I went in so many currents um, uh, that attracted me. You know, as an artist, I let it seduce me, and
Mm,
um, and there's always something new. You know, now I'm into this wave of erotic sculpting. I've been sculpting also for 15 years, but I never really gave it a priority because I was so busy studying and doing other things and being a teacher. And now I'm feeling like this. I'm letting go of everything. To be honest with you, also, I removed the word Tantra School of Fascinating Wonderment into my website, and I just let Fascinating Wonderment to be the lyrical name as a song. It's an invisible school. It's becoming more and more invisible, and I feel I teach through so many mediums.
mm,
Um, so it's a current of teaching, and yeah, it's fascinating.
mm.
Fascinating
Out of
wonderment.
out of curiosity, like did you remove the title because it's becoming even more a movement, like a current, and or because nowadays the word tantra is even more stigmatized or used in so many ways?
Yeah, a little bit of both, I have to say also. I feel the word tantra is really overly used and a little bit abused, and it's creating a lot of confusion.
Mhm,
And but mainly I removed it because I realized I'm not really operating as a traditional school. And people, when they relate to the school, they have certain expectation that belongs to the linearity of Western structure of school. And I realize that more and more I'm just holding a lineage of a school of thoughts. It's a
yeah.
current. It's a way of thinking and knowing reality. So it's a school in those terms more than in having grade one and grade two and
Mm,
level. You know, I always teach all level at once because no matter where you are, the teaching are the teaching. And wherever you are along your path will allow you to hear something different. I know this for myself. You know, I can go back to the classic text over and over, and they're always new. And I read something I've never read before, and I'm like, I can't believe I read this book already 5, 6, 7 times, and I never heard this. It's because when we expand, the teaching also expand.
mm,
I think that's what makes it really exciting for me to keep drinking from this current. It never dries out, you know.
mm. That is really like, I love that answer of like how to have like this stable, committed relation, not committed, but actually like, because it doesn't feel like a committed, it feels like this long relationship that is, you're being seduced and it's seducing you and you seduce and it's like this whole relationship that keeps being alive, and use the word entertain. Two things. First, if you're being called by the energy of Valentina, I can only recommend. And I'm saying this right now because I know that sometimes we feel someone and we're like, oh, should I go or not? But I'm just mentioning this as both as I've been participant and your orgasmizer. And I'm saying this because you said like I teach to all kinds of bodies. I'm not teaching grade 1 or grade 10th, and that's what I love about you because it's like we go into the depth, and whoever wants to join to the level they want to join in, welcome. But now I really want to go to the question of why I created this podcast, which is allowing experiences that have been edgy to be revealed, brought to the light, or rather like honored and seen. And so I'm very curious for you in your life. What is one of the first experiences that come to your heart or to your mind that has been actually really edgy for you?
Mm. Yeah, I've got one that came alive as you were speaking, because I'm writing a book in the last 2 years actively, in the last 10 years intentionally. I've been telling myself you should write about your life because I had many lifetime in one life, and so I'm busy writing. And recently, I came across this piece of writing. So I had a very long interview. One of my students interviewed me 5 years ago, and it asked me a lot of questions about my life. It wasn't about the philosophy, but was like Valentina growing
Yeah.
up and traveling, and out of this interview, I transcribed um, a trace. And now, because it's got a timeline, and now I'm picking up this timeline and I'm expanding in the story, and I'm getting involved again and writing together with the transcription. And this story came up, which I'd kind of forgotten, so I was in my 20s, early 20, maybe 23, 24 years old. I was living in London. I was a hobo punk. I had a shaved head. I was really exploring psychedelic and sexuality. Only now I can look back and see that was my training in the work that I'm still doing today. And in those days, there was a club that now it's quite famous in London called the Torture Garden. I think now it's pretty mainstream. Now we're talking about 1993, 1994. And in those years was the beginning of this club, and was a club of BDSM. Um, and we would go every month dressed up in a different archetype. So that already was quite edgy for me at 23 to explore so many erotic archetypes. And I had a group of friends, Italians, living with me in London, that we were very supportive of each other because we were putting ourselves in situations that were quite unnerving. And I think we could really do it, and we did it with so well. We did it well because we were supported. Now, today we would say safety. We were safe within each other. And so I remember we used to go to this club, all dressed up. We would take some LSD or some ecstasy, and we would dance in the dance floor. And there were all sorts of things of happening, sex happening, slave masters, submissive, dominatrix, people doing all this performance of body mutilation and cutting and branding on stage. In the 90s, there was this wave of body exploration, and we would stay there. We always knew there was a dungeon, there was the dark room downstairs, but we never the adventure there. It was too much. There was like this barrier. We knew we weren't ready. And so we spent maybe the first 6 months just dancing on the dance floor and being above ground. And then one time we decided to go down, me and my
Wow.
girlfriend. And and in the dungeon, there was no more glamour anymore. It was like a raw sexual exploration. And that was I can say many things, but I'm just set up the stage for this scene that is alive in my mind. When you told me something at the edge, I thought that was pretty fucking edgy still for me today when I recall this memory. At one point, I saw there were many rooms. In one room, this woman held up by maybe 4 or 5 men that really lifted her body up. She was naked, her legs were splayed open, and there was a man penetrating her with his fist, standing in front of her, while all these men were holding her up. and her body
Wow.
was open and relaxed, and her yoni was so exposed, was offered. And I'd never seen before in my life a hand of a human inside a vagina. Never got exposed to that. Never seen porn. Never watched porn. And that froze me, was so raw. There were so many elements playing at the same time. And of course, the first thought I had that froze me that this was like it was potent. I'm trying to find the
Mhm.
words. There was a quality of violence that I perceived as violence, but when I stood and really watched it, and when I recall the experience, maybe it was violent. I mean, it also depends what we define by violence, but it was very clear that this woman was really willingly to do that.
Mhm.
Um, so was it really violent? Was it violent? Um, the other element that still struck me, there was a quality of um, honoring and reverence. I mean, this woman held by this guy, and the dark room were dark, and they were wearing black and leather, all this BDSM
Mm.
look. It's violent in itself. There is metal, there is like points, and she was so white, completely naked, pink skin. And so that was also quite mm, contrasting, strong. So her
Yeah.
femininity, she felt so delicate, so vulnerable. Um, I mean, you see, it was so layered. There was this quality of reverence that almost I was in reverence. I think I was just standing there with my eyes, probably my mouth was also like this, holding my friend by the hand so that I let myself stay and watch it. I noticed the first instinct was to do this. And then I noticed I
Mhm.
did this and then this and then took the hand away. You know, the first is like, oh, I can't look at this. Oh my God, this is disgusting. Oh, this is disgraceful. Oh, this is unacceptable. All of that because I've never seen anything like this. And then there was something that kept me there and made me want to see. And, for years, this image played in my erotic fantasy
Mm.
for many years. And yeah,
Mm.
it was
That
edgy.
that is a freaking strong, powerful image that is super edgy. But there's one word that really struck me. Because when you described the scene first, I was like, oh, this must be like a forced situation. Even though she's willing, it must be forced, like her body must be tight. But you specifically described her as open and relaxed. And that was just like, indeed, like there is like this double edge. On one hand, you spoke about violence and just the context itself, but then the way you described it in her body is like, wow, open and relaxed. And I don't know, we don't know all of the information, but super interesting. Wow.
Yeah, and that quality of offering from the
Yeah.
female body was also striking. I don't think until that moment I've ever saw a woman so open and available to pleasure,
Mhm.
to be witnessed
Wow.
and almost sanctified. She was put onto the altar and she could just feel her pleasure to her edge. Maybe this was also edgy for her,
Yeah.
and to have a hand inside the vagina, it wasn't forceful in a way that she was being violated. It means that she was so relaxed and so willing that her yoni opened so much to even
Mm.
receive that.
Yeah.
Um, And also, this image which was so high above ground, it almost felt all these men were supporting her in having this earthly pleasure, and yet she was removed from the earthly realm. We were all there. We were the people in the dark room, in the dungeon, in this dirty, um, dark room of the thick eroticism. You know, in the up room, everything was glamour. It was this quality of pleasure that is what is accepted, what is on the edge, but also fashionable. Everybody looked amazing and beautiful. But in the dark room, there was this mask was off, it was raw and real. And you know, sexual energy when it's really raw, it's terrifying. It's
Yeah.
also, it shakes you because it's a fire and it's dark. And and I'm not saying this in that is bad or shouldn't be at all. I'm saying it's dark because it's the mystery, is the unknown, and so require great presence to navigate those realms because there is no mask, there's no facade, so they are intense and
Yeah.
and yet I remember this image, her light color, the tenderness, the vulnerability of her skin. She was above all of that. So there was this paradox happening right there and then
Yeah.
in front of me. I was with the people standing. I was smaller than everybody. So I was probably at the lower level. You're really drinking this event and everybody standing and she was above. That was, I'm still unpacking it, you know, when I was writing about it, so much more was coming to me as a 55 years old woman. This happened 30 years ago in my life, revisiting this and seeing, you know, how this image keeps giving, just like this woman. Um, Keeps giving and it's really being very inspiring now.
Mm.
Yeah, and of course that was the beginning of my exploration into the dark room. That was my first time, not the last. I went back a few more time after and had I noticed I had greater capacity to indulge into also the shadow of my own pleasure, the shadow
Mm.
places of my pleasure. I think this
Mm.
woman really initiated me.
Mm. Mm. Thank you, dear. Thank you for the openness, for revealing, and this powerful. And definitely have just like when you're telling it, it feels like you're telling like the myth of Inanna going down, 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 and like removing everything to only finally like again rise up. Somehow that's some of the image. And you just spoke about shadows in pleasure and sexuality. Could you name, it could be yours or in general, what are some of the shadows that are being played in
Well, the shadow
sexuality?
in our sexuality are the places we don't want to look into, you know, that we keep in the shadow, the places where we actually feel tremendous pleasure, but we don't want to admit that. We don't want to say
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
Where we are also feeling a little bit insecure or ashamed or we have guilt. Um, and so we try to avoid.
Hmm. And
And
so
when
the
we
dark,
meet,
yeah.
yeah, when we meet those places, then they're not in the shadow anymore. Like this woman was like a beam of light. She was so white and elevated. She was like an angel, actually. And for me, being able to look at that and acknowledging all the feeling that was evoking in me, so much so that I went in my own erotic exploration to have a hand inside my vagina. To I wanted
Mm.
to experience this, you know, and it was an experience of such profound pleasure for me. Um, you know, and if you want this could be shadow places where like, oh, I can't believe, oh, like I don't want to admit to myself that I would like that, or these are taboos that we don't explore. And when we do explore them, there is so much power that get released, and is like a coming home that we can embrace all aspects of our life. It's not even sexuality only. I think sexuality is a beautiful playground because everything it's much more obvious. Um,
Mm.
it's very naked, as we as we need in sex to be naked. But our shadow also play in our everyday life, in the places of intimacy, in our relationship with money, with things, the things we love that we don't want to admit we love so much.
Definitely.
um, so,
Hmm.
yeah.
I'm gonna take a deep breath with that. Because I still have some last questions for you, my dear. And one is, do you remember a time and experience where you were flirting with the edge, but you actually fell from the edge?
Hmm. Hmm.
Or is a time on the opposite that you're like, ooh, I'm about to flirt with the edge, but you actually chose to stand back, to be like, wow, actually, I'm not going to play with the edge this time.
Yeah, I don't know. Some memory are coming up, um, but also are big conversation to be had. Um,
Mm,
because in my life and in the work I do, everything needs to be put in the right context, to talk about it. Because I think context is everything. Truth changes according to certain moment in time when we tell this story. So in order not to distort the story, I'm not sure how I can speak it, but I can say maybe sometimes when I flirted on the edge, I can say when I'm invoking the Dakini in my work with the feminine current of Tantrism, we have this archetype, this force of reality. We call it Dakini, it's life force. It's very feminine, it's potent, it's life itself. It's got the darkness really enmeshed with the light. And sometimes you think you're kissing the Dakini and everything is wonderful and life is so harmonic and the heart is open. And then the Dakini spits some poison in your mouth to see
mm,
if your heart stays open in hell. And it hurts, those are the moment, when you say playing with the edge and I fell, I'm thinking when I have invoked the Dakini and she really came with the sword and she slapped
mm,
me and she cut my head. And I realized I was playing with forces way bigger than I thought. I didn't have enough humility and I was thrown on my knees again. And I was made really humbled. And oftentimes this happened with my students, when there is a clear dynamic that I am the teacher and they are the student, and I am the one with something to teach them. And then something happened and everything spin around completely. And I realized, oh my God, there's the Dakini. It's coming through my student and to
ah,
slap me awake. And I am so humbled again, and I'm falling apart. And there are my students keeping me together. And in that moment, I know, okay, there she is. This is I call them, this is the Dakini moment,
mm.
And I'm just sharing quickly one example of this student I had. There was a young man on the spectrum, um, autistic, and yet so very intelligent, and he responded so well to all the tantric teaching, to the Tandava and the movement, the dance with reality. I mean, he was struggling to have uh, a rhetoric conversation over the coffee table at the coffee shop. We were sitting there with his mom chatting about shit, and he was so unengaging and so disruptive. And I totally agree with him. This is bullshit. He was telling us, what you're doing, I'm not interested. I'm not engaging. But when we were alone and I was teaching him about the Tandava and the yoga of touch, he was so present.
Mm.
And there was that time in my life where I was very taken by the figure of Padmasambhava, which is the founder of Tibetan Tantrism. he traveled from India to Tibet. And anyway, I was so taken. I was studying about him. I was researching him. I was dreaming about him. I was imagining him. I was, self-pleasuring with him in mind, offering my heart to him. And I had this desire to meet Padmasambhava in the flesh. And I was kept asking the universe to please come to me in the form of this man. Like, I want to be your consort. Show yourself to me. And these were my prayer, my orgasmic prayer to the cosmos. And then this young man came to me, and we were doing the stand-up together in this moment where I was clearly the teacher. He was not only a much younger man than me, so clearly the role of teacher and student was very established. And also he was on the spectrum, so there was this illusion that I knew something more about the human nature than he could. And I was being invited to teach him how to be in the world by his parents, to help him to navigate the world. And we were doing the Tandava, and he was in such flow and such presence that through him I felt the current of Padmasambhava. I suddenly
Wow.
realized, here he is. Here it is. And it came from the most unexpected places, the places where I was still holding some arrogance that I thought I knew better. And that's when the master come, when the Dakini come. And in that moment of absolute awareness that took over me, my heart exploded by the richness of that moment. And I burst into tears. I was sobbing. We were holding finger and doing this Tandava together. He was unwavering. He didn't stop a single moment. There wasn't a flinch in his body, holding the body of a 50 years old woman, feeling all those emotions, tears and howling and orgasms, and the heart unraveling onto itself. This awareness that Padmasambhava was right here in front of me, that moment was happening,
Mm.
to have that consciousness through this man, it was coming. And for this young man, he was confirmation that the greatness of this moment was happening by his unwavering. And this is a guy that could not string a conversation at the dinner table. And in that moment, he was there holding me, I was falling apart. I was a mess. I was knots and tears. And he held me up. So I don't know, like these are the moments when I feel I play with the edge. I ask of existence. And then when its system gives me, it floors me. It throws me on my knees with more humility, makes me so humble. And that's when I fall, I touch the edge. And the blow, the energy that comes,
Mm.
the force, it's so big that I could only fall in pieces. by that magnificence. And my
That
students are there to hold me. This is one of the story. I have few. I have yeah, really. This is how to come back to your original question. What keeps me going in this current of teaching tantrism? That I'm in continuous learning through my students. You know,
Mm,
this identity, like man and woman. We started with this podcast. What is masculine? What is feminine? Who is teaching and who is learning? Even when you sit with the teacher, you know, the power actually is of the student because the student dictate the unraveling of the teaching. If the teacher, it's a good teacher, it's really available at the mercy of the student and allowing
mm.
the student to guide the teaching in such way that the teacher become the student, you know. And then again, who is who? This is the essence of the teaching, you know. Who is doing what? You know, there is really only love dancing here. And that when I keep discovering this, it humbles me and it keeps me uh, coming back for more, coming back for more, because I know that I don't know. And it's mesmerizing. It's so seductive.
Well, one more time, darling, you seduced me. I want you back to the podcast.
Say it again.
And yes, honestly, I said it one more time, you seduced me. I want you one more time again in my podcast
Of
in the
course.
future. Because I
More.
do love
Encore.
encore, oui.
Encore.
I do love the word dignity is coming. Interesting. Dignity, but alignment, integrity. Integrity that you are revealing stories and truth that need their time, just like the body needs time to open and to receive. I love the way you deliver it that way. I am especially like positively shocked in a way of like, wow, what I'm taking from this is like how the edge for you really brought you to humility and even more devotion to the tantric path and even more like this cosmic joke of like, oh, I am devoted to the tantric path, but then it's like turning everything around for actually being even more in an ecstasy that you couldn't even fathom like think of. And yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's like pulling me inside out continuously.
yeah.
Um, hmm. It's a love affair.
Yes, you said
It's a
like I
love
think the greatest
affair.
love.
And I
Is there
also, many times, I think I haven't chosen this path. It chose me. It really chose me. And I let it. I let it have me. And
mm,
I let it have me with totality.
mm, I resonate with that, and when you're saying this, I'm seeing you being like in the air with those men lifting you, like live lifting you, and I'm seeing you like this in the tantric path, like in a beautiful way. Anyway, so energetically in my mind, it
Fuck
happened.
me, deeper, deeper. Yes.
Uh, is
Yes,
there
yes.
anything else that your heart wants to express for right now? Because yeah, just it's your heart. If there is something that you're like, wow, Leela, this is still something in my heart.
I just feel really, I want to say thank you for listening to my stories. You know, this is my humanity. Um, so thank you for letting me be so vulnerable. I mean, I'm thinking again when we began about the edges, my edges is my intimacy. And in both story that I was telling you, they are quite intimate and eh, and they're quite precious. And as I was telling her, I always felt, do I? How can I tell the story, honoring the story, that it doesn't get distorted and manipulated and misinterpreted because we are on social media, we are online, people are listening. from their perspective, their judgment, and yeah, no, they're very intimate stories, like presenting a lover and hoping that it's not going to be misinterpreted or um, yeah. So there was some tenderness in there is vulnerability in my being. I think it's a good thing.
Mm,
It's the edge. It's my slight discomfort is deep intimacy of the heart. So thank you for evoking this in my being in such a
mm.
short time, 1 hour. And there we are.
Thank you for being brave and devoted to life and yeah, opening up and my dog is
Sundara
saying yes,
agrees.
yes, yes, yes. She rarely very rarely barks, but that means like she's like really saying yes, yes, yes.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you,
But
Sundara.
truly, like, thank you, because I know it's vulnerable and tender, and you're like, you are an international teacher, and it brings up other, yeah, other ways. So, I love she's saying like, yeah, that's the time. That's the time. We said 45, 1 hour.
Time's
So
up.
for anyone listening and watching, if you want to find out more about Valentina Leo, please go to fascinatingwonderman.com. Is it .com?
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. I'm still doing like as I was doing your orgasmizer. Valentina Leo has amazing online courses that you can again like watch again. She also has retreats, in person like events. She does amazing one-on-ones. She has sculptures. She's a multidimensional, incredible being. Anything else, my dear? I'm saying this with a lot of playfulness. But the depth is there. Like the depth is there. Like I really mean it. I really mean it. I was
Yeah.
your organizer for a retreat. Unfortunately, the second one didn't happen, but the first one, like, oof, divine
Yeah, I
initiation.
still resonate the divine initiation in my being. We did many things together. And and then for me, I just love being here with you and having this conversation. And people can find their way through me or not. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. If this moment was reached, I think we did a good job. And that's all we can do. Love every moment with totality. And
Mm,
that's what we do well.
I agree. Thank you so much, Valentina. I love you so, so much. I'm gonna bring an end to this
And
flirting
I
of the
look I
edge that
look
I already.
forward I look forward to be at the academy with
Oh,
you.
yes, definitely to Lalita Academy in Switzerland. I would love that. That would be tremendous. Of course, yeah, it came up many times. So looking forward to seeing you in Switzerland.
And many
And yeah,
blessings
see you
to
again on
you.
the weekend.
Yeah. Mwah.
I love you. Wishing
Namaste.
you the best. See you soon. Bye
Ciao.
bye.